one car that actually had a working radio. My Honda Accord was on the fritz in regards to the radio, aftermarket radio, Pioneer AVH 2550 NEX. Beautiful thing about it, it's got an integrated DVD player and integrated CarPlay, which makes it very nice when you're driving. Well, both of those were kind of slowly starting to deteriorate. I'd be starting my car, radio would turn on, then off, then on, then off, and it just got to be a real nuisance to a certain point where the radio wouldn't even kind of turn on anymore. And not just the radio, just being able to hook up my CarPlay and everything else. On an aside, I never actually got the DVD player working either. But today, all of that changed. I was able to sit down, take a look at everything, figure out what I did and didn't hook up. And it turns out that there was one particular wire. It was the remote system control wire, which I had no idea what it did. Apparently it hooks up to an amp, which I didn't see one in my vehicle, so I never hooked it up. But when I hooked up a bypass, I had an extra wire for that too. So sure enough, I looked into everything, and those two wires were actually supposed to be connected to one another. So that's why my DVD player actually wasn't functioning. Every time it said front seat passenger not allowed. So I was able to fix that, right? So that was beautiful. So I was like, oh, I can actually play DVDs in my car now. That was great. But that's not all. So I thought the issue with the power coming on and off was a result of the Pioneer radio unit. But I figured, hey, since it's power, isn't that, actually belong to the vehicle as far as the power piece? So I looked at the fuses, none of the fuses were blown, and that kind of blew up that theory. But when I actually looked at the wires and I actually connected those two wires that weren't connected before, not only did it give me the ability to actually play DVDs now, but what it also did was give me the ability to update the firmware of the radio. Now, if you're not familiar with what firmware is, consider it to be the hardware programming that allows everything to work within your radio. And firmware, pretty much anything that's electronics, there's an aspect of firmware within it that allows the actual hardware to communicate with each other. The software is essentially how the programs on top of the hardware work, and probably what you're most used to, especially with, let's say, an interface that you see. But underneath is firmware, and firmware is just as important because it allows all the components to talk to each other as far as the physical hardware. So it allowed me to update the hardware. Now, I was able to do it for my MR2 probably a couple months ago, but I was not able to do it for my Accord. Why, you ask? Because those two cables, the system remote control cable, as well as the other one for my bypass, weren't connected. So in other words, the system couldn't sense that the emergency brake was on because the emergency brake was not hard connected. As a result, wasn't able to do a firmware update until today. So after I did that firmware update, took about maybe 10-15 minutes, everything just started working again. Once I put everything back together and made sure that I used a butt end to connect those two wires, everything started working. Turn the car off, turn the car on, turn the car off, turn the car on, and the radio started right up each and every time. So the issue that I had nothing to do with my car. It had everything to do with the Pioneer radio, and it was an issue of updating the firmware. So now I can jump in my car and actually have everything working. And I can't tell you how relieving of a feeling that is, because I've been having this issue probably for the last maybe 4 or 5 months, slowly getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And now everything's working again. So I am super ecstatic about that. That means I can move on to my next project. There's always another project, but today I was able to accomplish the Accord project, and I'm looking forward to the next project, which is the Mercedes. Lots in store there, but definitely a lot more work too. But I'm waiting to get that project on track and moving along. So more to come on that. Lots of fun pieces for that car, because there's a lot that I need to do, but just gotta take it one piece at a time. So I appreciate you tuning in. I hope you appreciated this clip. I know I did, because again, it just made my day today. But thanks for tuning in, and hope to catch you on the next clip. All right, bye.